Preluding Lights is going to drop just as this video is being posted, so let's go through a summary of the event that you have to know of, and then afterwards we talk about the operators that's on the banner, whether or not you should be pulling for them. So let's get started. The event stages will be open from the 9th of December all the way until the 19th of December. This is just a 10-day event. This is what we consider as a mini story event, meaning to say that there won't be a lot of rewards that you can get from here. You do not have to farm any single stage in this event. Don't do it. There are no farming stages in this event. While the drop rate for Rock Cluster and RMA are better than some other stages, but the overall efficiency is much worse than other stages. So don't farm anything, go back to your 1-7, go back to your favorite farming stages. Do not touch any of these stages after you have played them once. This also goes to say that you can actually complete all the event stages of Preluding Lights in one day. So once this event drops, clear all the event stages, you're done. It's over. It's pretty much the entire event completed. So it's really kind of a time where we are going to be resting, I guess, for this month of December until we wait out for anniversary that's to come. Even so, despite being a mini story event, there's going to be a welfare operator for you to grab, which is Bena. I'll talk more about the kit later, but you can grab your Bena from here, and if you want her potentials, you can buy her from the events shop later on. On the Bena that we're going to discuss in a bit, there's the 6-star operator featured, which is Carnelian, followed by Kirara, Cliffheart, and Indigo. In terms of the new skins that you can get in this event, there's going to be a Tone skin, Surtur skin, and Zima skin. It's a bit of a surprise because I did mention before that these skins are a little bit on the uncertain side, whether it will arrive in Arknights EN or not. But it did arrive, which the question that I have towards Yostar is, if you're going to release a collab skin, because this was supposed to be tied with a fashion store, are you going to sell those fashion clothing for us in EN? Because I'm pretty sure some of us want to buy it. I'm not exactly the most hopeful. I don't think they're going to sell us the clothing. But it would have been a good choice though. You could have made some marketing out of this since you're bothering to sell these skins. But oh well, we have the skins. I think that's the most important thing that we want to get out of this update. And then finally, there's a new furniture set which is called Lena Rest. If you need some more furnitures for you to customize your dorm, or you're lacking a particular set of 5,000 ambience, then you can grab yourself a Lena Rest just to fill up your dormitory. So that's the entire summary of the event. Let's go through the operators and whether or not you should get them. Now the first operator I'm going to talk about is Indigo. Indigo is a 4-star charge caster. We already have a charge caster that's within the game, which is Iris. So that one's a 5-star variant. This one is the first 4-star variant. Charge casters have a unique range at E1 where you can see how they don't have the usual normal caster range. Rather, 2 of the tiles that's on their left and right is shifted forward. So there's a giant square that's right in front of them. It can be quite unique. It could be useful if you think of reasons as to why you want to use that range. Her E2 art is honestly very beautiful of an operator. I feel like there will be quite a good number of people very mesmerized by her beauty. And the good thing to note here is that she's a 4-star, so she's going to be very easy to get either within this banner or even in other banners as like an off-rate 4-star. So don't worry, if you want an Indigo, whether you pull now or later, you're bound to get her. Now, Indigo is considered a DPS and crowd control operator. If you don't know about the trait of charge casters, it states that attack deals arts damage, and when there are no targets, it can store the attacking energy and fire it off in a burst. So for example, if let's say they're supposed to attack someone, like if you're wondering what's their attack interval, they have a very long attack interval. It takes them 3 seconds to attack each time. So for example, if let's say, how do I give you an example? Let me show you this. This is Indigo, alright? Indigo has the ability to charge her attacks if there's no enemies around. So for example, it's time for her to attack, but there's no one around, then she's gonna store the attack. And this stored attack will be much higher of an attack value. It's kind of like she can have a, I don't know, you call it like a Hadouken or something, and then after she can hold the Hadouken there, up to a maximum of 3 of it, until the time where an enemy walks in. Then after she'll fire all those charge attacks first, and once she exhausts all her charge attacks, she'll go with normal attacks until this particular enemy dies. If the enemy is dead, there's no one around, she'll go charging her attacks again. So hopefully this is a good enough example to understand the trait. Now charge casters are honestly one of the most interesting classes in the game for the fact that they do have one of the highest attack values ever in the game. If you look at the E2 maximum value, it's 1116. If I'm not wrong, the highest attack in the game right now is actually Iris, who is the 5-star variant. And this amount of attack value makes me wonder what would the 6-star charge caster be like. The downside of having such a high attack is the fact that their attack interval is very long. Their attacks hit very hard, but they attack very slowly. So you just need to take note of that. Now, her talent states that when she's attacking, she has a percentage chance to bind the targets for 4 seconds. And she will not target bound enemies. So, this is something that you must take big note out of, which is the fact that if she binds someone, she's gonna leave them alone. And the other problem is that you're relying on a percentage chance to get her to bind someone. It's supposed to tally well with her charge trait, because if she binds someone, for example, if let's say you've got the Calcid and the enemy again, right? If this person gets binded for 4 seconds, that means she can't attack. So there's a possibility of her storing one charge attack and then going against the enemy afterwards. It's interesting of a mechanic, but like I said, I don't really like percentage chances. She does have a better skill too that helps her talent, which I'll talk about it in a bit. So let's look at her skills. The description of her skill 1 states that she will change her attack range, kind of like an Ifrit range, although shorter by 1 tile. She'll change her attack range and she greatly reduces attack interval. Attacks will deal 50% arts damage. Now, this can be a problem, because for one, again remember this, if she binds someone, she'll stop attacking them. So, if let's say you already bind someone by the 1st second, you're kind of wasting her skill, because her skill only runs for 4 seconds. The intention of this skill is so that it's gonna be a burst damage kind of thing. It's gonna be smacking the enemies as fast as possible with as much arts damage. But again, I find the biggest problem is that she no longer hits bound enemies, and at the same time, it's a very short skill duration. So I don't really like this skill on Indigo. I would say if you want a skill like this to be played, I'd rather you go look at either Ifrit or you look at Iris, because Iris has the same skill as Indigo, except instead of 4 seconds, it's going to be 5 seconds, and there's no weird talent that states that she doesn't attack bound enemies. So, skill 1, not my thing on Indigo. It's my thing on Iris, I would say. Skill 2 states that she reduces attack interval again, although by a smaller amount, and increases talent activation chance to 3 times. Bound enemies within attack range will receive 20% arts damage for every 0.5 second. So now, she's gonna attack much faster, she's able to bind people with a higher percentage chance, because right now it's 20% for instance. If you have her at E2, M3, you're looking at 60% chance to bind. So it's much more likely that she will bind someone. Since they are bound for 4 seconds, she will be dealing about 1,500 damage, I would say, which is decent, and then afterwards the enemies will start walking until they get binded again. So this skill is pretty nice. It's a very strong DPS skill. I would say it's one of the nicest caster skill all around. And it's nice because she's a 4-star that you can easily build. The only trouble is that her SP cost is a little high. It's SP cost 40, but the duration is sweet. 20 seconds is long enough. I like the entire kit overall. The question then becomes, oh, if I have an Iris, does Iris replace Indigo? No, Iris does not replace Indigo. Iris' niche or Iris' purpose is that she puts people to sleep, and then she deals big damage to the sleep enemies and all the enemies around. But for Indigo, it's not the same. Indigo prioritizes on binding people. So it's kind of playing the same role of Ethan. It's gonna soon play the same role as Mizuki. And when it comes to slow and bind, there are those very special times that you kind of wish you have operators like that to help you out. So she is a very decent 4-star. I'm pretty sure all those kind of 4-star players will be happy to own her. So that's that for Indigo. Should you pull her, you're gonna get her eventually. Do you want to build her? That's up to you, whether or not you're interested in her kit or her high damage. The next operator that I'll talk about is Bena. Bena is a very new operator to enter the game. She has a class of a substitute specialist. One and only, it has no 6-star variants, no 4-star variants. So first of a kind, and it's interesting that it's on a welfare operator. So, she's got this E2 art, it's decent enough. You can kind of think of her like a Gemini kind of thing, to have like a little twin sort of stuff. I don't know what's the backstory behind her having a second clone of hers, but you can probably read about it in the Preluding Lights stories as to why she's such an interesting character. So, let's look at her kit for a quick bit. I gotta say that when I saw the text saying DPS and fast redeploy, I feel like I was about to get tricked by this operator, because I thought, wow, fast redeploy means I can just smack her everywhere. But it's not the case. She doesn't behave like the other fast redeploys. The reason why she has a fast redeploy tag is because it's referring to her very special clone. But she has a huge redeployment time. In fact, her redeployment time is one of the highest in the game. It's 80 seconds long, and that's pretty painful to work with. So don't get tricked by the fast redeploy. She's considered a substitute specialist, or you can call it a zombie specialist if that suits you better. So, when receiving lethal damage, does not retreat. Instead, swaps to a substitute to continue fighting, which this substitute has 0 block count, and after a certain period, the substitute will be replaced by the original. Okay, you guys might be very confused about how this works, what this means, so here's another example to show you again. Now, this is Bena right over here. Okay, this is not Indigo anymore, this is Bena, alright? Bena has a clone. This shall be the clone. So, if let's say an enemy smacks Bena like crazy, like smack, 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 and then Bena dies, then the clone will pop up and the clone will assume the position of Bena to continue fighting on behalf of her. Now, the good thing about this clone is that this clone has 0 block count, she can take reduced arts damage and physical damage, and Bena is a physical dealing operator. But when she goes down and her clone comes up, this clone does arts damage. So, you gotta take note of that when you're using this tool. It's very interesting when you fuse a physical damage operator with arts damage together. So at one point, if let's say the physical damage is not the way to kill the enemy and your Bena goes down, then the arts damage one will pop up. You get what I mean? So it's a pretty cool mechanic, I would say. But, the clone will stay up for a certain duration of time. Once the clone is up for 15 seconds, the clone will go down, and Bena will come back with full HP, and then she'll resume with her own physical damage and whatnot. Then you're gonna ask me, oh, Cookie, what if Bena goes down again? Like, she goes down in one hit. For example, she's fighting Patriot or something. Then if she goes down again, the clone will come back up again. Then when will Bena die? Because she sounds immortal. Bena dies when the clone dies. So in the 15 seconds of the clone being up, if the clone dies and run out of damage, that's it. Bena is retreated entirely from the battlefield. You have to wait for 80 seconds to redeploy her again. So hopefully this makes you understand how this works. It's a very interesting mechanic of an operator. I just love the fact that they put it on the welfare one. So like I mentioned about the clone and whatnot, so the clone is called the substitute. Substitute will deal arts damage even at E0. And from E1 onwards up to E2, the reduction in the physical and arts damage will get higher and higher depending on the promotion level and whether you have potentials for her or not. The fact that if you E2 her, there's 40% reduced physical damage and arts damage, it's pretty sweet of an amount, I would say. This could make the clone very survivable, and this might cause a situation where Bena stays alive on the battlefield for very long. It's an operator that I would encourage building if you want to have fun in the game. Now, let's look at the skills. The first skill states that max HP will go down and attack will increase. Ignores a certain percentage of the target's defense. Take note that the ignore defense, if I'm not wrong, the highest value of ignoring already starts at M1. So from rank 7 to M1, you're already getting that 35% defense down. If you go all the way up, you're just increasing her attack even more. Now this skill is kind of a short skill downtime of 35 seconds and a skill uptime of 20 seconds, which is pretty long. The thing about this is that it makes it pretty sweet to kind of put her there and then raise up her attack so that she can ignore the target defense. Ignore target defense doesn't mean guaranteed damage, by the way. Ignore target defense only means you're subtracting the defense of the enemy. And this could be good against enemies that have, say, medium level of a defense, those with B grade or C grade. If you're fighting against A grade using Bena, it can get a little tough. But the good thing is that if she gets too hurt from the big enemies, for example, then her clone will pop up and deal arts damage against them. If let's say arts damage is the thing that is better against them. But I'm not too much of a fan of this skill. I don't find the ignoring defense all that useful in terms of Bena. Like, it's very useful for Chen Outer, but I think Chen Outer has a much bigger amount of ignoring compared to Bena. If we look at skill 2, skill 2 of Bena states that attack will increase, attack speed will increase, and attacks will drain self HP by a pretty huge amount. It's 4%. This meaning to say that because of her increased attack speed, her health will drop down so damn quickly that this almost entirely triggers the clone to pop up. Now, Bena can be healed, by the way. Don't worry, she's not MT. The original version of Bena can still be healed by medics. The clone can still be healed by medics. So if you need to heal them to sustain them on the battlefield, you can. Now, just note that this second skill is really a fascinating one for the fact that it speeds rush Bena like crazy to deal as fast damage as possible, and then afterwards get the clone to pop up, deal the arts damage as fast as possible, and then you do a switcheroo. And I love the fact that the SP cost is very short. It's SP cost 25, and there's a long duration of 22 seconds. This skill is simply a playground. I would say if you are here to have fun in the game and you want to fool around, try something new for once, give this a shot as an operator. She's welfare after all, you're gonna get her max port, so you can enjoy her kit to the fullest. Alright, that's what I'll say for Bena. Overall, a very interesting one, which is gonna be a contrary to the next one that I'm gonna speak of. By the way, just at this point, I'm not gonna talk about Cliff Heart. Everyone who's watching this video has a Cliff Heart. If you don't have a Cliff Heart, you might not be playing Arknights right now, because it's literally a newbie gift that you get when you first join the game. Like, everyone gets a Cliff Heart at the start. So, I'm not going to talk about Cliffheart. We're going to move to the next operator, that is Kirara. Now, Kirara is kind of what we call a gamer girl. She's considered a AoE specialist or stalker. She's the same class as a Manticore, Ethan, and future to come Mizuki. She's a 5-star variant of this, and apparently from what I understand from the story, she is someone who's really into anime, manga, and games, so if that's the kind of girl that you like, maybe that's the reason that you'll pull for her. But in terms of comparing her to the other AoE specialists, I don't know if I'm a full fan of hers. She's a pure DPS specialist, like she's all about the damage. But the downside to AoE specialists is that their attack interval is freaking long. It's even longer than the charge caster that we saw just now, with 3 seconds. They attack every 3.5 seconds, and that can be quite long of a wait to, get things to work out. If you look at someone like Manticore, at least you're doing AoE slow. You're trying to slow down everyone into Manticore's range. If you look at Ethan, he's at least doing bind. Or if not, if for whatever reason you're using the skill 1 for the arts damage, then that can be a thing. Kirara has different skill 1s and skill 2s, but I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of them just yet. I'm gonna show you guys what I mean. Now let's look at the talent first. Recover a certain percentage of max HP every second. If there's no allies within 8 surrounding tiles, recover a certain amount of max HP every second instead, and it's a bigger amount. So for example, if you look at the E2 with no potentials, it's 2% every second. If there's no one in her tiles, it's 3.5% max HP every second. And I guess this is kind of like she hates being around people. She's just a person who prefers that she stays alone from everyone. So it's interesting mechanic, but it's counterintuitive, I would say. Why do I say it's counterintuitive? It's because if you don't know this about AoE specialists have a trait where it says that they have 50% chance to dodge physical and arts damage, dodge meaning they might not take any damage at all, and is less likely to be targeted by enemies, meaning to say more often, they will not get hit by even ranged enemies. Ranged enemies will focus on someone else instead of them. So the idea of having Kirara to be someone to recover her max HP over time, it's very strange. More often you're gonna play in a way where you're always gonna be putting operators in the vicinity, maybe not in the 8 tiles, but around here, somewhere nearby, but the other operators are gonna get targeted instead of Kirara. So I don't know what's the point of having her to recover max HP over time. It gets even weirder because her skills also utilize the talent, which we will take a look right now. Now for her first skill, it's an offensive recovery skill. At rank 7 it's 3 SP, at M3 it's 2 SP. So if it's 3 SP, it means that every of her 4th attack is more damage. If you're going for 2 SP at M3, it means that every 3rd attack will be more damage. And it's a bit too long, I would say, because if you talk about M3, you're only getting the bigger, fatter damage every 9 seconds. If you're talking about rank 7, you're getting the bigger, fatter damage every 12 seconds, which is very long of a wait. The skill states that the next attack deals an additional hit of arts damage equal to 150% of Kirara's attack. At this point, I don't know why you're using Kirara, because you can say it's interesting, hey, it's arts damage, but then afterwards, Ethan's gonna look at you and say, hey, I can do arts damage as well. So what if Kirara is doing more damage than I do? And you can even just substitute it for casters in this case, or you can have even operators that deal both arts and physical damage every shot, like Blue Poison and Taunts. So, I found this skill super odd for Kirara. Some people have tried to reason with me to say when are the use cases for Kirara, but I disagree. I don't think there's any use case for skill 1. You can easily find other operators that will do the exact same thing. So, it's not a must for you to build this unless you really like a kid, you think there are good reasons for you to use this in your account. The second skill states that the talent effect increases to 3 times and deals arts damage to enemies within attack range every second. So this one is even better. At least it's an every second skill and it's gonna be like bursting a lot. So it's gonna be pew, 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 and then you're getting arts damage all around. It's quite a fat amount of arts damage, I would say. For example, if you look at Elite 2 maximum without Trust, it's about 800 attack. So you're going with 800 arts damage every second. It's quite bursty and it could take out some of the mid-tier enemies quite easily. This one is interesting, but like I said about the talent, I don't get it. What's the point of having her to increase the max HP even higher? There will be some interesting times where, okay, maybe you play medicless, and that's why you want to use a Kirara, so that Kirara will survive on her own, even though she's getting attacked by other enemies instead. But still, it's not a must. The synergy is just a bit weird. You don't really need this. I wish this was traded off with bigger and better arts damage instead. But oh wells. I like the SP cost though. It's 30 seconds, it's 8-second duration, it's pretty decent. So she's a pure damage operator, like I said. But is it a must to own this? Not really. You have a lot of pure damage operators in the game already. So many people around can do just the same amount of damage. So, to me, the people who will benefit the most out of owning a Kirara is if, let's say, you really lack a lot of physical damage operators, the kind of AoE firepower, or if you lack even like the arts damage firepower, because she does deal a huge amount of arts damage, or if not, if you're a specialist knight player, like specialists are your favorite thing, then owning a Kirara will be very nice for your account, but for most people, not a must. So I'm gonna leave it as that. I'm gonna look at Carnelian now. Alright, Carnelian is the older sister of Beeswax, one of my favorite operators in the game, and she does have a pretty slick E2 art, I would say. A super beautiful one. It really shows off her personality and her own little firepower right over there. She's considered a modal caster, or what I like to call a true AoE caster. What I mean by true AoE is that everyone that's within her attack range will get hit. But the only trouble with modal casters is that they don't attack when their skill is not active. So it works like an Angelina, it works like a Beeswax. They don't attack if there's no skills being turned on. Now her range at E1 or E2 is very sweet. It's this nice little like plus sign range. If you're using some of her skills, it will increase even larger to include some additional tiles. The tags that she has are very nice. It's AoE and defense. Modal casters are the only one with the defense tag on them, because what happens is that when they are not attacking anyone at all, they will have increased defense and increased resistance. So with that kind of thing, they will sustain themselves, and then once they're using the skill, they just go all out and burst as much as they can to remove the enemies. So like you see here in the trait, that's basically whatever I've been saying. Normally does not attack, but has greatly increased defense and resistance. When the skill is active, they'll deal AoE arts damage. Alright? If you're wondering what is the defense multiplier, the defense will be multiplied by 3, and their resistance will be added by 20. So that is the way for modal casters. Now if you look at her talent, it says that she recovers max HP after activating skill. When charged, effect is doubled. So she's the first operator in the game to have this interesting mechanic called charge. I don't think there's any other operator in the game with a charged mechanic yet. The idea of charge mechanic is not the same as the charge caster. Charge mechanic basically means that there is an SP bar that all the operators have. So this SP bar will fill up once. When the skill bar for Carnelian fills up completely for one round, it will fill itself up again. So normally your skill bar has a blue color. Carnelian will fill it up again with an orange color, and once the whole orange bar is filled up, then this allows the skill to have even more damage, and it allows her talent to operate better. So the idea here is that when the skill bar has gone on twice, then she'll be healing 2 times more for her max HP. So at E2, she recovers 40% max HP after activating skill, and if you have it charged, she'll recover 80% max HP instead. And she has an interesting talent at bottom, which states that when the SP is above the limit, so when it's in the second charging phase, her SP recovery speed will increase by plus 0.6 SP per second. Now, this comes to the question of, does Carnelian replace Beeswax? No, Carnelian in no way at all replaces Beeswax. Beeswax is a super strong defense caster. Beeswax has the trait that allows her to self-heal every second with a huge amount of max HP. In fact, I think it's 4% max HP or 3.5 max HP. And it's very high of an amount. It's to the point that I may even call Beeswax to be one of the best defenders that you can own in the game, but know that she's a defense caster. So only ranged enemies will be the one attacking her. Melee ones will never care about her. With that difference in mind, Carnelian only self-heals when skills are activated. All other times, she's not self-healing at all. So that goes to say that Beeswax is still better for defensive reasons, but Carnelian, you use it for offensive reasons. So get the idea across that they are not exactly the same. Now the skill 1 of Carnelian states that attack is increased and defense is increased as well, with the charge effect allowing her trait to remain during skill activation. So this allows her to become super defensive of a caster, and she's gonna deal just slightly bigger amount of damage. Still through AoE, all the people in the range will get hit, but I don't think there's a huge need for this skill more often. If you really need a defender, some of the better defenders that you have at the end of the day are your operators like Nien and Hoshiguma. But for any other instances, it's going to be very rare for you to need a caster to have increased defense, and let alone a huge amount, because I think Carnelian will have more than 1000 defense because of this skill. It's interesting, just I don't think it's a must. It's interesting, but not a must. Skill 2 is where it's even more interesting, where it states that she greatly reduces attack interval. Attack will inflict slow for 0.3 seconds, but when it's charged, her attack is even greater, and the slow effect is changed to bind for 0.6 seconds. So it's different from Indigo, right? Indigo had a percentage chance to bind people, but for Carnelian herself, she doesn't have the percentage chance. She is always gonna bind people confirm, and it's gonna always happen within her skill duration of 25 seconds. It's quite long of a bind time, I would say. The amount of binding that goes on is a little bit comparable to Suzerain. It's not better than Suzerain. Suzerain is still the best slower after all, followed by Future Passenger, when you get to see all the Passenger buffs that's come. Passenger is very good at slowing enemies as well, but for Carnelian, I would say that in terms of the slow ranking, it's probably like the 4th place or the 5th place in terms of all the operators. Angelina is also another one that's very good. So it's interesting of a skill that it can slow everyone in the range of her, but you're probably only gonna use it at certain specific point in times. If not, you're gonna fall back on your other favorite slowing operators. I have to give credit to the fact that the SP cost of the skill is very low. It's 25 SP, at rank 7 I believe it's still 25, yep, and the skill duration is still 25 seconds as well. So it's pretty neat that it has a short skill downtime, although you must remember that if you want to go for the binding trait, you have to times 2 of that, so it's 50 SP, or like 38 because of her additional SP recovery trait. I'm not that too huge into really wanting the skill 2 to be of use. Skill 3 is often the one that people will care about the most. So skill 3 is called Mark of Gluttony. Again, another short SP amount, although you must take note times 2 of that. And then afterwards, the skill can run for 21 seconds. So, expand attack range, attack gradually increases to 280%, and the charge effect is that attacks increase damage taken by the target from Carnelian by 20%. So up to 5 stack, meaning the damage that an enemy takes from Carnelian can be added by about another 100% maximum, and it's pretty neat. You're gonna see a lot of enemies just around her range in this expanded range, by the way, getting deleted from a skill. It's very fun to use. It's got a better skill downtime than Aya Fiala. I would say that if there are more enemies than Aya can handle, for example if you have more than 6 enemies, that's kind of where Carnelian might really come into play to become super useful of an operator. Even if you're not having a lot of enemies, you're just soloing a bunch of few, like 1 or 2 enemies, Carnelian can still whack a huge amount of arts damage. Now the only downside is that if let's say she runs out of her skill, then if an enemy has the stacks trait involved, like for example the taking more damage because of stacks, right? The stacks, if I'm not wrong, will just disappear when the skill ends. Yeah, it stays lasting until the skill ends. So you might not get the full maximum 100%. Now, because of Carnelian's traits, she pairs very well with operators that increases her ASPD and her attack. For example, she's super good together with Arc. Because of her increased defense, if you shoot Arc skill 3 on her first, and then you activate her skill, she's gonna smack a lot of enemies with high damage, and she's gonna attack really quickly as well, which is a very delicious skill for you to look at. Other enemies that buff her attacks will simply be just a good pairing together with Carnelian. I'm excited to own her, I will be trying to pull for her, and I would say this is an operator that I find to be very fun. If you don't have a lot of arts damage in your account right now, it could be nice to own a Carnelian. But if you have a lot of arts damage, it may not be a huge must to own her. I would say pull on the basis if you really like the sound of her skills, or if you really like the way that she looks, because she's kind of like a very hot operator that you can own in your account. So that's all that I would put towards Carnelian. The overall opinion towards this banner is, should you be pulling for it? I would say pull for it if you happen to like any of the operators in terms of the looks or the skills. None of them are a must pull, I would say. There is no like completely crazy operator all around. It's just super interesting skill kits that we have never seen within the game yet. So enjoy this time during Preluding Lights during this mini event, and if not, I will be seeing you guys in a little bit of a timeline update video that's to come, I believe tomorrow or the day after. Alright, all the best in your event stages. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!